Hey guys, I just wanted to make a quick video because there's been a series of events that have unfolded on Twitter or X, if you want to call it that. But Mayor Melham has been on News Nation making some claims that he's seen some interesting footage from a videographer. I've actually reached out to the gentleman. His name is Dan Oliverio. Jeez, I was practicing this before and I can't get it right on camera.
Dan Oliverio.
Oliverio, as I'm going to go with that. But he's been gracious enough to join me. And what I found out is after the News Nation article went up, the clip, people were asking, where's the videos? Where's the videos? So I reached out to the mayor and he was gracious enough to post them. And as soon as we posted them, everybody said, you shouldn't have posted these videos. You shouldn't have posted these videos. So there's a lot of questions about them, and the gentleman that took them is here with me to be able to have his voice heard to help us understand the context around them and what was going on at the time. But for now, I want you to watch this particular news
and spent some time with the videographer out of Long Island. I mean, he has orbs, these glowing orbs of light on camera that as you watch them right before your eyes, they seem to transform into a mechanical drone. So I've actually watched it myself where these orbs are glowing balls of light, different blinking lights all over the place. And as it gets closer to you, you actually see it transform into a drone. Whether it's a drone from the beginning and it's being obstructed by bright light, I can't tell you, but it is cause for concern. We have looked at flight tracker data. We don't see any airplanes in the skies. These things are absolutely some kind of phenomenon that's happening just over our homes. We need answers, and we need them quickly.
So that was the news clip that kicked this whole thing off. So today we're going to hear more of the details about this video and what the gentleman was seeing that was recording them, and hope to get a little bit more clarity on what's going on in New Jersey.
I said, what do you offer?
So what was the answer?
A new world if you can take it.
Who am I to say that planet Earth is the only location of a life form that is civilized and organized like ours?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me once again. I'm here with the videographer that was mentioned by Mayor Melham, Dan Oliverio, and I'm wanting him to be able to use this platform to answer the questions that came up about the videos. But first, let's find out who Dan Oliverio is. So Dan, if you don't mind introducing yourself a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Dan Oliverio. I know, super hard to pronounce. I'm off the boat Italian, so forgive me with that. But thank you, Dan, for having me here. It really is a pleasure, and it really is something that I really appreciate to be able to share my voice and be able to promote my film, my documentary, Our Strange Skies, which what we're talking about, the footage that we're talking about as the Mayor Melham of Belleville, New Jersey, was speaking about. I'm showing footage, I'm sharing little bit by little bit, bits and pieces there online, which I found super interesting that I thought would engage a lot of conversation and have people kind of looking up, if anything, in my area between like Long Island and New Jersey. We have a high volume of this UAP here. So it's been a wonderful past few weeks in terms of moving forward and understanding a little bit more, getting a relationship going with the mayor was really awesome in terms of trying to get somewhere, because we're all in the dark here. So trying to bring everyone into the light further and further is the main goal, is the main objective from all of us. As with you, Dan, we're all here trying to understand what's happening. So that's really what I'm doing here. I'm here to answer any questions about the footage. So thank you for having me, Dan.
It's my pleasure. And I did write down several of the questions that were commented on when we posted this thing, but you did mention you were trying to encourage people to start looking up. That leads me to ask you the question, were you looking up a lot before, or did the drone flap just kind of get your attention and that's when you first started looking up in the skies?
So I'm going to take you back to April of 2020 when I first had my first UAP experience. I was on Long Island, different part of Long Island, but I was living with my parents at the time. I just moved back to New York, and in my old bedroom a funny circumstance, I look out my window and I see what we're seeing as these orbs for the first time. Dan, when I tell you, I start slamming. My younger brother, still who lived at home, was in the room next door. I'm slamming on his wall, going, "Guys, there's aliens outside. I don't know what I'm seeing. I don't know what's going on." Because when you see these things, my friends, for anyone who's only seeing these things online on your little 8-inch screen, when you see it in person, you realize it's breathtaking. It's literally something where you go, "Wow, that's something phenomenal." Whatever it is, it's something phenomenal. Getting this with my mom, who ended up coming into my room, we witnessed basically from the horizon line. I saw what people now call the tic tac in my horizon line, something from over my house, from like over me, and then something from the point of the distance on the horizon line met. All of them met right in the middle. And then in a flash, after I had called my mom, in a flash, with the flash of light, it was almost like 4th of July. Everything was gone except that one orb that I was able to get a video of. And I do have a video of it, I believe, on Instagram. But it was the first time that I experienced them. And then I haven't heard from anything in the sky. I was always looking up until recently, until November. Uh, Not November, forgive me. August of this year's. My baby was born in September, so I remember right before my baby was born, seeing what we're seeing now. So I kind of stopped looking up for a little while. I was always curious about it. It was one of those like once in a lifetime things where you're like, wow, you're almost kind of private with it, because before, conversations like this made you feel like extradited at work or at school or whatever the case. People would think, oh, this is a guy's a UFO nut or whatever the case. But now it's becoming very commonplace. We're starting to all see these things in our sky. So it became something where when I started to see in high volume, I was like, let me just start picking it back up again and really looking up, and it led me to start filming, and then going on now with this film, going, let's move forward and really show the people of the world what I'm seeing. It's pretty cool.
Well, I can definitely relate to the feeling you've expressed about being on an island, because this topic in general is something that is prone to making you keep your tongue quiet. Like, you don't want to tell everyone you know about it, even though people seem to label you with that. They'll call you that UFO guy, and they expect you to just tell everybody everything all the time. Well, I think most of us are fairly closeted with our interest in this topic. I can tell you, when I stopped hiding behind an avatar on Twitter, it was a sense of relief for me to know that I'm not pretending to be someone that I'm not, to know that I'm not ashamed to, at least online, be able to talk about this openly and genuinely. So I can relate to your sentiment there. And then I can't relate to the feeling of seeing a UFO or a tic tac that you've described, because I've never seen anything. I've actually taken my daughter and we've gone on a stakeout at Oak Ridge National Labs just before Christmas in hopes that we would see a drone fly over. We struck out, but we had a good time. We got some good Subway subs in our bellies and watched a few movies, but we didn't accomplish the mission, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean it's the last time I'm going to try to do it. To let everyone know, like, you've know about the orbs, you know about the tic tac that you've expressed, but what's your familiarity with airplanes and airplane flight patterns in your particular area where we're filming these things, which I think is Long Island, if that's accurate?
Yeah, I'm on the North Shore of Long Island in particular. So Long Island's huge, Dan. Long Island, people really don't know much about it. They confuse it for like Staten Island or something, which is like a borough of New York City. Long Island is huge. I think we have basically the population of New York City on our island. So we're a lot of people. It's a huge island. So I'm on the North Shore. It's in between Connecticut and Long Island, New York.
So
So you wanted to know about the vicinity of the airports and things like that, you're saying?
yeah, are you in any major flight patterns or approach paths, or I guess exit paths?
Yeah. So it's fun because dealing with putting out this footage and stuff, I've come into contact with a lot of skeptical people, which is cool because I'm a very analytical person myself. Dan, I'm going to tell everyone out there listening, I'm a very skeptical and analytical person myself. So I'm here to have this conversation and say, listen, I can bring the facts. I can bring you there. And then you were talking about wanting to see a drone with your family. Please come to Long Island, New York. Come to Belleville, New Jersey. The mayor and I would both love to show you our drones. We have them everywhere. We kind of like are having an issue here, and that's why I'm doing this, because there's so many of them where you're going, what is going on? One day I walked over, I was just bored. I was like, because I'm filming these things all the time. I walked over to my local police, which is just across the street. I'm like, you see that thing? And the cop just going, wait a minute, what the hell is that? And they're just literally everywhere. Getting to it, there is JFK and LaGuardia, which are all the way on the end towards Manhattan, right? So you're talking about towards Queens and towards Jersey. You got Newark on the other side over there, where Mayor Melham is. And something that Mayor Melham had me cracking up about, where he is, his jurisdiction, it's smack dab in the middle of all these airports. So I find it ridiculous, and I'm gonna look right in the camera on this. I find it forgive me, I'm Italian. It's just irresponsible to tell human beings who are constantly seeing airplanes their entire lives, where they're shaking their house. I mean, I remember when the Concorde used to exist. I don't know if you remember what the Concorde was, Dan, but like, yeah, Dan, that thing would shake my house at 7 a.m. where I used to live right next to JFK. So a lot of us, we're all living near airports or whatever the case is. I don't live near an airport now, not to confuse anyone, but I'm saying we've all lived around airports, are around airports. So we are well aware what airplanes look like. We are well aware when a plane is landing, what landing lights look like. We're talking about blinding lights. We're talking about things that change shape. We're talking about things that hover over your house for hours, and then you'll be staring at it, and then it'll dip away. You can film them as much as you want. And like I said, I can only try to make the skeptical people as happy as they ever will, because I feel like some people won't ever accept, even no matter how hard of a fact you're bringing. I bet people money. I'll tell them, listen, you got $2,000, I got $2,000 cash. You meet me in the spot, or you want to Zoom or whatever it is, we'll leave it with another party. You leave the money there, because I'm willing to put money down. And I want to have somebody want to put money down too, because I need new equipment. Dan, I'm sure you can relate to that. But like, you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Because I know I'll win. I know hands down that there is no way that I'm seeing these things all of the time and it's just coincidence. It makes no sense that these things aren't on radar and it's just a coincidence. It's just an airplane. That the mayor has his own constituents that are sending him videos and pictures every night above their own homes. And these people voted for him, Dan. I mean, that's something me and you can't relate to. And that's something that I wanted to touch in the film, Our Strange Skies. The point of my film, Dan, yeah, I'm sure there's like films where they're getting high ranking military officials and people in the film. I'm trying to meet like local people. That's what I'm trying to meet: local mayors, cops, firefighters, people that are experiencing this on a local, on a human level, rather than some kind of like super secret military top clearance thing, because it's in our homes, it's above our homes, it's in our backyards. And that brings up a bunch of questions, and that's how I came to contact with Mayor Melham, because he had the same questions that I had. Who are they? What sent them? What are they doing? Are they scanning for something? What are the health repercussions for what they're scanning? I mean, Dan, there's so much that could be happening, but we don't know, and we're in the dark, and we're surrounded by all this confusion. But all I know is the facts. Like you were asking me about, the airports are very far away from me. I am in Glen Cove, facing Hempstead Harbor, and on the other side of Hempstead Harbor, I have Port Washington. I have videos on my Instagram showing what it looks like in the daytime, time lapses in the daytime, and then time lapses, bang, as soon as it turns nighttime, it's like a fireworks show in the sky. I do time lapses so you can see them moving real fast. You're not even seeing all the ones that move slow, the ones that hang out. I'll take a time lapse of one parked right in front here, where I'm looking at right now. Parked over, there's like a watershed. It's like a natural water reservoir. Hang out there for about 2 hours. I can almost do it like clockwork. I know when that one's gonna about to come once a week, and then dips off, and you'll see the other ones come and hang out. And I have plenty of footage of that. All of these things can't be a coincidence. And what's really strange to me, and what's strange to the mayor, is that these things look very familiar to things that we're familiar with, but are able to, as we can see, trick a lot of people. and you can see it happen with your own eyes. I have plenty of footage that shows it up close, but these things are built with technology to confuse us. So sorry if you have any questions here. I feel like I've been speaking for a little bit, but
No, you're
there's a lot to unpack. I feel like we're just on the tip of the iceberg here.
yeah, you're the guest, so you get to speak as much as you want. So the one thing that you've touched on is what's called mimicry in the UFO community, and it's something that I kind of discarded. But if there's any truth to what's going on right now, and I want to phrase this as I have to say if there's any truth to this because I haven't seen it with my own eyes, so I'm having to take people's word for it, and I can't trust anyone. No offense, Dan, even though you have a great name, I can't trust you 100%. So it is one of those things. This whole topic is one of those things where until it happens to you, you're not sure if you 100% buy into it. And let me silence my family text message group real quick so we're not constantly hearing this thing beep.
You're great.
Okay.
I welcome Dan. I welcome anyone to come to Long Island. Look up. If you're in Belleville, if you're in that New Jersey area, just look up. The mayor has people sending him video now all the time because his constituents are looking up. I welcome the people of Long Island to look up. I purposely didn't start going local here first and trying to get support here because a lot of the times, like what we were talking about, Dan, people look at you like you're crazy. They put you on this island. They go, oh, you're this crazy person. Oh, are you on drugs or are you okay? Da da da, whatever. So that's why I'm like, I'm going to the source. The mayor who was pissed off because Mayor Melham was supposed to know something, my friend. All of the mayors in New Jersey got invited to this first ever type of ever meeting where 500 mayors were supposed to meet in New Jersey where they were supposed to get information. Then last second they pulled out and told him nothing. They gave him a 3-minute conversation, he told me. Meanwhile, I forgot who it was. It was some intelligence meeting that they had. He was saying we have to bring the mayor on to speak about. I don't know if it was some House intelligence thing. He said they had a 3.5-hour meeting. He spoke about it in the interview in my film, Our Strange Skies. But it's really crazy. Why pull and not tell the mayors what's going on when you were about to tell them what's going on? And then have a 3.5-hour meeting when you had a 5-minute meeting with the mayors. I mean, there's a lot of confusion there. And that's where the mayor, Melham of Belleville, New Jersey, and I really came together and wanting to find out what's really going on because we both have that wanting to know, the same as you, Dan. We all want to know why we're in the dark. The president is telling us that they know, then he's saying that he doesn't know. So there's a lot there. And politics comes into play now. Like, it's crazy how, you were talking about the UFO community, the UAP community. I mean, like, now we're really in it. Now we're realizing how the government tape plays, the local tape plays, and really the local part was where I was focusing on with the film, with the questions that I was hitting Mayor Melham with. And I know I was hitting him with personal questions, and I can share those with you now as your dad. Instead of saying, are these Chinese drones or is it Iran or things like that he's been, hearing all the time. I was saying, Mr. Mayor, my girlfriend was making fun of me. I'm Italian. Oh, you're calling Mr. Mayor. She goes, stop calling him Mr. Mayor. Call him Mayor Melham. But I was going, Mr. Mayor, I got a 4-month-old baby that sleeps above these things all the time. They're sometimes 100 feet up. I have plenty of videos where they're literally passing by my apartment window. How do you explain to me what's going on? And how can you tell people like me that we're safe? Questions like that hit him really hard. You can tell he's a great guy, and he took them very personally, and he took a deep breath, and he tried the best that he could to answer, but we almost don't have an answer. And that's where the issue lies. And he can speak more to government and stuff. Me and you, we can only understand government to a certain level, but he's responsible for people, and his people, they rely on him for literal safety. And he has, within his limits that, they talk about that nuclear, whatever it was that went missing, that broke out of the case that still hasn't been found. That's a concern of his because that happened in his area. You know what I mean? That in between whatever airport, whatever that came out of, that got broken out of, that was near him. So if that radiation that they're looking for is near his constituents, someone might be getting cancer and people might not be telling
Yeah.
people, so that's and that's what he's thinking. You and I feel are more on the understanding that this is probably a non-human intelligence, something anomalous that we're trying to figure out. He's more on the more practical side, which is where I feel a lot of skeptical people are on. This is probably man-made, this is a drone, and that's why he really loves my footage, because you can see it turning from some mysterious orb into something that looks man-made, like you were talking about that cloaking earlier. But there's a lot to unpack here, Dan. There's a lot, and if you want to touch in real quick before I keep talking, I feel like I love talking about this. I really would love to talk about the political arena right now, if we can touch on that, especially with President Trump. We were all really expecting him to say something. We all heard so much from him twice. We heard about these drones, about how it almost felt like he wanted to jump on the question, let's talk about these drones. They're in Bedminster. I don't know if I'm going to go there, which hurt the mayor, hurt people from New Jersey. Imagine hearing, I don't want to go there. And then you see how on a personal level, that's where I'm trying to connect to. Imagine you live there, dude. Imagine that's where you're from. And you're going, the president of America is afraid to come where I live, where my home is. It's shocking, and to find out that, that he was saying that Biden knew, that the military knew, and to the people, that's like, wow, that plays on where my film is going with, can we trust the government? Can public trust come back to institutions like the government? I mean, where are we going? What's going to happen now with the future, with what's being unveiled? If people start to see that their world is completely starting to be different, who knows what things can be like? So I find it very intriguing that we're still in the dark. I find it very intriguing. And, whatever side of the political aisle you are, doesn't matter. It was nice hearing someone saying, let's bring things to light, but then funny now to hear him say, hey, Susie, find out about that immediately, as if I didn't know about it before, even though I told you twice. It sounds like the same old story that we've been spun on before, but now it's got a new wheel. So very interesting stuff there.
Yeah, well, I do remember the meeting with the mayors had with, I can't remember who it was that was actually giving them the briefing, but I call it the most New Jersey interview I've ever seen. One of the guys came out of it, and he's a little fiery gentleman, and I can't quote exactly what he said, but he's basically like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? And that was the most genuine response from a mayor that I think you can have to this situation, because I think that the messaging that the Pentagon has been putting forward is almost insulting. How can they say, we don't know what it is, but we know it's not a threat to national security? So that's where I think a lot of the frustration lies with the people of your area and the people of the United States as a whole. Mm-hmm. Like, how can you tell us two things that are in conflict with each other with a straight face? So that it leads us to believe, and it leads us to have a loss of trust in the government that represents us, that is here to serve us, not for us to serve them. So that's a frustrating part of it for me in particular, because it's parallel with the UFO topic, because we want to know what they want to know, what they have to tell us. And they're just trying to use weasel words to get out of telling us anything concrete or denying anything, or simply denying something is a problem that they have. So we'll get into the little bit of the ramifications a little bit later. But okay, if people are still watching this, I'm sure they want to know, what do those videos look like that you've been talking about? So yeah, I'm going to play the one that has the purple background in it. That was actually one of the two videos that we put on Twitter that got a lot of traction. So can you kind of lead us into this one before I click play, just so you can kind of give us the before I get to that, I have asked Mick West, actually searched his Twitter account, who's a well-known, we'll call him debunker, but he's just a guy that tries to come up with prosaic explanations for things. And by the way, I think that almost everything that I've seen is prosaic in nature, but I'm looking for that needle in the haystack of what's out there. So once again, I haven't had the same experience as you have. So for me, I can't say, well, I'm going to assume, I'm going to default to a non-prosaic source, non-human intelligence. I'm going with it's mundane until it's proven to be extraordinary in nature. But that being said, I'll play the purple video in a little bit, but if you could kind of set us up with the date, time, location. That's the information that McWest thinks that needs to accompany any video that we have, so that they can compare it to the flight logs. Just to be as transparent as we can, which is not how the government's acting. So let's at least do it for ourselves. We'll be transparent. So do you want to lead us into this video, please?
Yes, yes. I definitely promise you, Dan, to get you the exact time. I can give you the exact coordinates now. I can tell you exactly where I was standing. So that I can promise you. I welcome any debunkers. I love conversation. I always tell people conversation is what moves things forward, whether it be politics or whether it be talking about UFOs, whether it be life. You have to have conversation. A lot of times people want to shut others out and they go, no, you don't think like I think. So no, I'm going to shut you out. So definitely can... I can give you that exact time and location. The location is over here in the North Shore, Glen Cove, Long Island, New York.
Okay.
But I promise you, I'll give you the exact time and coordinates or whatever the case that you need for that exact video for whoever that you're speaking of. Shout out to whoever that you're speaking of. I'm sure that you're a super awesome person.
Let me also interject one thing real quick. I think there's also a problem with the UFO community because it's basically one and done for credibility. Everyone has the right to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time in the content that I create. If there's a video out there that seems suspicious, seems anomalous, but it turns out that it's not, that shouldn't eliminate someone's credibility wholesale.
I understand. I agree. I agree.
Err.
I agree. Misidentification happens.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Definitely misidentification happens. I was joking around with the mayor because, he's got a lot of videos coming in. People do confuse things like airplanes, helicopters. I mean, we have Black Hawks. I actually caught a really cool video of a Black Hawk falling to UAP the other night. But we do have Black Hawks here. So there's a lot in the air that people aren't aware of. I'm sure Lockheed Martin, all these people have crazy kind of like VTOLs, the vertical takeoff things that are in the air that we don't know about. I'm sure that's out there. But what I can say for my footage is that just the sheer volume of what I'm showing people, and that's what really took the mayor back. It's like, okay, you see this once, you go, maybe that's a maybe. But when I can tell you, I can for a fact bring you there personally, in person, and show you, it just tells a whole other story. So moving forward, as you wanted to talk about this first video here, it's in thermal. Which is something that I wanted to touch on. Now, we talked about how people said that you can't track these things, that they're untrackable, that it's you're going out into the ocean and they're losing them on their radar. Clearly, you can see this is giving off plenty of heat. These are $100 Amazon night vision binoculars, my friend. And what you're seeing here is what I'm doing is I'm turning the focus knob to try to get a clear image. So what's happening when people are videotaping these things is it seems to have some kind of technology that throws off the lens. It throws off your eye, but it significantly throws off your lens. If you try filming one of these things, and many of you at home who've tried filming them yourself, you'll realize your camera completely gets out of focus. That orb gets really, really big. You have to try resetting your phone and camera and stuff because it does have some kind of blinding cloaking technology. Now, here, as you see, as it turns, you can see some kind of undercarriage, which has an extreme heat. I've seen it up close. And the tail, which has heat on the back, and which is why I like to call these guys Big Red. I've been classifying them, as you can see that tail in the back right there, an extreme source of heat. It's huge. The tail is huge. I've been talking with people who are familiar with planes and things like that. They're huge. And in the background, you can see, and this quickly, just to mention, they're everywhere. They're all around. I can film at any point in the evening and just point out 6 or 7 to anyone. But like I was saying, these things do give off signatures. But the signatures are just confusing because it depends on where you're seeing them. So I've been kind of like stalking these things for a long time. As I was saying, I was classifying them by name. I've been watching them every evening for over a month now. And they do give off certain characteristics. You can tell which one is what. This one I do like to call Big Red, just because it has a fun, big, red, giant tail. And it's kind of like a coal fire. I've seen it up close. I have videos of it up close. And I do believe that is some kind of propulsion technology that we're unaware of. The mayor himself believes that this is man-made technology. I believe personally, as now I'm speaking to the UAP community, that this is some kind of reverse engineered technology, as this could be man-made. We're seeing a lot of reports about how the military is reverse engineering craft and retrieving craft. So there's a lot of information being put out there that we're not really sure of. This could be man-made because a lot of it looks like something that would look like an airplane. But as we can see from kind of better videos that have been coming out more and more on X, as one that has been circulating now recently, which is something that I believe it's in one of the videos that we have lined up. This big white looking type airplane, windowless, huge. I have a video of one of these flying in between two orbs, and we're seeing these kinds of different craft flying through the air. I have yet to name that type of craft. This one I like to call Big Red. I've named another craft that I like to call the White Knight. Many of you have seen the White Knight in UAP videos that have been circulating. If anyone have seen a white cross kind of flying in the air, it's because the tail of the White Knight gives off some kind of like, it looks like the end of it's like this from underneath. So it kind of gives off a cross in the sky, which brings me to where I really want to speak to, Dan. We're having a lot of confusion online. And that leads people to see the content that I'm putting out, and they're going, is this like the crazy CGI thing that I've been seeing? Because it doesn't look like the crazy CGI thing. It looks kind of more like an orb that turns into a regular drone type thing. And what we're seeing with our own eyes here, as you were talking about, I'm seeing it with my own facets of my own bodily organs, just like everyone here in New York, Long Island, New Jersey, Belleville, where the mayor is. We're seeing these things with our own eyes, and they look like this. They look literally like this. They're parked over our houses. They're hanging out there for hours. Sometimes there'll be a dozen of them. So how do you explain that? How can you say that that's an airplane if there's a dozen of these guys hanging out? A dozen of these guys that'll move in formation. Dan, sometimes they do something very interesting that they kind of like ladder. And I have a video of it. Someone asked me, they go, how high do these go? You know how like you can answer on Instagram, like with a comment? I was like, let me answer with a video. And I literally was coming home from work. Like, it's not like I have to go and do something crazy to get this video and whatever the case is. I literally parked, got out of my car and looked at the moon, and I see one going here, another one here, and another one here. And they're just slowly going up. And I have a video of it online. Anyone's more than welcome. I have it posted online, the saw footage from my phone. One flying right in the middle of all these three and the one above. So we got four in one shot. Just like, just point the camera and just show how high they go. So what is this? There are a lot of anomalies. There's a lot of confusion. And I just welcome anyone who, like you said, you have skeptics that want to find out where I am. The airport's nowhere near me, my friend. I mean, I can show anyone that tree line in the daytime. You're more than welcome to stand where it is. Glen Cove, go to the beach, stand there, go to the beach in Seacliff, which I also go. It's kind of like an adjacent beach. Stand there, look over the water. It's exactly what I'm looking at. Anyone in the Long Island area on the North Shore, you're more than welcome. Head out. And everyone on Long Island listening, they're in Oyster Bay. People are saying that they're in Port Jeff. This is Port Washington. Whatever you're seeing from the camera there faces Port Washington. So everyone in these areas is seeing what I'm seeing, Dan. So it's not just me, and I say that to any critic too. Just go look in the comments section, and that's something that I also want to talk about. The people and the trolls or whatever else is in there in the comment section, but just go look for the genuine comments. It's kind of like when you're going to a restaurant. I own a restaurant with my family, then that's what I do. I've done my whole life. I'm a pizza guy. I make pizza. And a lot of us, when we go to a restaurant, you kind of look at the real reviews. You go, okay, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. This person was probably an asshole, whatever the case is, 1 star, 1 star, whatever. But you can tell something that's genuine, and you can tell the genuine comments because people are like, I'm from New Jersey. I'm seeing this exact same thing. They're parked over my house every night, and they're saying the exact same things that I'm saying. So I'm kind of just trying to be a voice for people who are being silenced. People are being gaslit. And I'm saying, look, I mean, I just got to point a camera out. I can buy $100 camera, and the United States government, I mean, the FBI, the CIA, I'm sure they have so much of our tax money to spend on equipment. I'm trying to make it happen for the people of the world to see with a little $100, whatever I can afford camera. You know what I mean? And I'm picking it up. Why are we not getting answers? Why are we being told you can't see them when you can clearly see them? You can clearly see them turn from some kind of orb into a drone at certain angles. And I don't know, I just have all these questions that the mayor has as well. And for some reason, we're not getting any answers, Dan.
So I'll go ahead and say, like, the number one question that people have put forward when they've reviewed this is, How do you know that's not just a plane flying directly at you? And as its appearance in the sky, the angle of observation changes. It looks like it's morphing into a plane. How do you respond to comments like that?
So the first thing I want to talk about is misidentification, right? Because that's how anyone can make a mistake. It's by misidentifying something, going, oh, let me see what I'm filming. So before I start filming anything and wasting any of my time, because just so everyone knows, in New York, it gets cold. We call it brick. It gets brick is all F. And I am out there by the water here, so you can imagine what it's like by the water. Okay. The wind is flying by me. I am freezing, freezing cold. I'm not going to waste any time pointing my cameras at something that's an airplane. So I have the radar going and I'm filming with radar every time I'm doing anything. So I'm not going to waste any time filming that would be an airplane, a Black Hawk, anything else that would be in there. We got private helicopters, we've got private airplanes, we've got small airplanes, we've got things coming from Manhattan. There's a lot that's in the air that could be misidentified. So before I even hit record, I make sure that whatever I'm looking at is not something that comes out on radar. And I just posted a video today, a very clear video, where in a time lapse of about 20 minutes, you see, I don't even know how many, it's got to be maybe 20, 30 and one maybe 20-minute time lapse. And I go to the radar probably 4 or 5 times, and you feel free to pause the video. You can see clear skies, completely clear skies. Actually, for a while, actually heading even towards those airports that are really far, I even turned my screen sideways, because for anyone who'll be like, oh, you're only showing in your area, maybe it's really far. I even turned the phone horizontally, and anyone's more than welcome to just pause the screen that way, and you can see. And I try my best, and to try to put it out there for people who really are interested to say, okay, let me see what could be a coincidence and put it together and find out the facts. The facts are there. You can see that the radars are clear, and you can see by the reflection in the water, for anyone watching my content, you can see when they're exactly over me, because you can watch the reflection coming over the water. You can see it even being an orb in the reflection. And as it's passing over where the radar would say, it's called the Hempstead Harbor. What you're looking at, the water that's in between I and Port Washington in front of me, is called the Hempstead Harbor. So you would see them flying over. You would see them come and turn. You would see that happening on the radar. You would see them heading towards Port Washington from wherever they're coming and turn. But that's not the case. And I've had many people look at the footage, many people check radar. So I've had a lot of people who can vouch for that as well. People who even work in JFK in the airport. So I have witnesses. I have people who are familiar with planes, people that work for TSA. I mean, I don't know what else people need.
So you say you keep checking the radars. Can you elaborate on, do you use an app, I assume, on your phone?
Yeah, but
What
it's
app
called
do you
Radar
use?
24, Radar 24.
So is it tracking the commercial flight paths, or I'm not familiar with it myself. So
It's a very popular radar app that people use on their phones. It does everything. It tracks everything from the United States military to commercial to private. It's got everything on there.
okay, and I think I'm gonna even take a little bit of liberty and answer a question for you. Someone asked, like, why don't you put it on a tripod? I have one of those $100 night vision cameras. I've tried putting it on a tripod. You cannot use it to hunt to actively survey the skies. You have to hold it in your hand. You have to be able to be nimble to get around to focus on things. It's very difficult to then transition from holding it in your hand to setting it on a tripod. It's just difficult.
And these are binoculars, Dan. These are binoculars. It's not even a
Okay.
camera. Yeah. So you can't even there is no tripod to put it on. It's just a set of binoculars I got 2 pairs of gloves on. I'm freezing my ass off, and I'm holding it like this, trying not to shake. I'm going, man, people are saying I'm shaking. People are saying I'm shaking.
It's so tough because we're trying to prove something that highly funded organizations struggle to prove with video and photographic evidence.
With
That's
your taxpayer dollars.
correct.
I want to add that in there. I'm a libertarian, my friend. My girlfriend makes fun of me because I'm always saying I'm a Ron Paul libertarian. At first,
Dude, me too. Ron
right
Paul
on.
Revolution.
Wow, dude. Dan and Ron Paul libertarian, something about it, man. Something is clicking in the universe. I'm happy
Yeah.
about that. But
But
yeah,
that's one.
our taxpayer money, man. For
Yeah.
what? It's going in someone's pocket. Meanwhile, I have to buy new equipment. People are like, the timestamp on your binoculars is wrong. I'm like, I can't. I gotta buy a new one because it won't work. I have to. Somebody send me. Like, I don't want to be one of those people that's like, let me get on a GoFundMe. I'm trying to just, I tell people know me. I'm on Long Island. I've been been here. My family has owned a restaurant since 1999. A lot of people are familiar with me, so I'm not going to be trying to be out here going, oh, I need help getting the $100. I'm going to do whatever. I'm not. I'm telling people I'm just an honest guy seeing what I'm seeing in the skies. And yeah, just for anyone who has comments about the video quality, I'm doing my best. I did purchase a Canon Rebel or whatever DSLR point and shoot, so we do have some better footage starting to come out now as well. So you're going to start to see that. People want to see a little bit more of something clear. You can go ahead and see what I posted today. So
Yeah, something that is also an obstacle or a hurdle to us getting better footage is the fact that we have significant others that rely on our income to just live. So it's hard to get justification to drop a bunch of money, $500+ on a high res camera. My channel is called the Fifth Pillar of Emphasis because the fifth pillar is engaging with the masses. And I feel like that's what you're also doing, the same thing, where you're not trying to get into the halls of Congress and the Pentagon, trying to find the guy that knows all the information. We're more or less documenting this moment in history that could be a one-off event that occurs in the history of humanity. And we're documenting it from the common man, the everyday Joe perspective. And there's value in that as well, not just what the key people in the key positions are trickling information out to us, but what is the boots on the ground experience like for people like you? I am jealous I'm not closer to New Jersey for this whole thing, because I definitely want to go out there and see this, but it's just not financially or calendar wise feasible. So we have to do what we can in the locations we can with the equipment we can afford and make the best of it. So I feel like that's what you're attempting to do. Just like myself, I'm trying to do that same thing. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this second video, and you can just kind of talk us through it as we progress in there. So let's click this and this. Okay.
Okay, so we're seeing this object turn into what we see very often. A lot of the times I'm getting footage from people from airplanes. You see it be this orb turning into what people see in airplanes is a light with two blinking dots on the sides. And then it turns into what you can see is this drone object. Now, I want to give a really cool understanding to people of what they're seeing here. Now, you see as it turns to something that looks like what you would imagine what would be a drone. Now, you see, you and I can have this conversation as people who are part of the UAP community. You can see that whatever is here has some kind of cloaking technology, because the way it moves at the angle that it's at, it changes its form. It changes what it looks like. It can even change of what it could appear about how many lights it has, and it depends on the angle, and that goes to show intelligent design. Whether it be human or whether it be not human, whether it be American or whether it be Chinese, Iran, something intelligent created something that would allow us to have this conversation and say, what is that? I don't know what that is, because it's not clear. You see, it turns from something that turns into an orb, and like we were talking about, it's clearly not on radar. And there's plenty of them. I mean, hundreds you pass by at night, hundreds. You can see this object turn to something that looks like it has two lights, but you see what you're really seeing are the wings and the tail, Dan. So you see the frame of this thing is very confusing. You can kind of try to see the tip, and that light in the front of it is some kind of chamber which is underneath it, which is, I feel, the propulsion of what's moving it, allowing it to do that hover effect. So as you can see, as it turns, you can see that very, very bright tail that I speak to you about when I tell you that it's called Big Red. You can see Big Red has this blinding red tail on the end. That is not something that commercial airplanes or any kind of airplanes have. Yeah, they have some kind of light or strobe or whatever the case is on the back, but they don't have lights on them that as the object moves faster, the lights start to supposedly blink faster on the film or whatever the case is. There's the reflection that I'm talking to people about. For anyone who's saying this object is very, very far away, they're not. You can see the reflection right there on the water, and as it moves away, the reflection kind of pins itself. I have clearer footage now that I posted with the Canon, but you can see it pin itself and turn into what is, as we see, this drone type object. But well, like I said, I want to get back to this kind of cloaking technology. It's very cool because you can see it as it's happening over and over again. You kind of as human beings, we recognize patterns. So everyone watching, notice how you can't tell what becomes the wings and what becomes the tail as it moves, as it shifts, as it goes from, especially from that blinking, that round with the two blinking into this. You go, where's the tail? Where's this bottom chamber that he's talking about, which I believe is some kind of plasma, because I was underneath one and it's shooting out some kind of blue fire as well as in the front. So that light that you're seeing, which looks like headlights or whatever, is some kind of propulsion system that I believe. I believe that under its wings, that what we think is wings, is something that balances it. And that tail that I've been characterizing as big red for everyone, so we can kind of recognize these crafts, because you do see it with your own eyes, Dan. It's something that with your own eyes you see, oh wow, there's this big red thing, right? The tail is how they hover, especially very high up. Remember, I was telling you, someone asked me how high they go. It's very confusing to see, but they pin themselves like this. And you can see, because you can tell what would be the wings or what would be the headlights in this kind of confusing kind of cloaking pattern facing downward, Dan, and that red dot facing upward. And then they kind of pin themselves in the sky, just kind of like you can imagine the emoji for a red pin is, with that red part being on top. That's how they hang themselves. They kind of like are seeming to hover to people. And that's why I had a little bit of confusion with that white knight I was telling you about, that cross tail. But it seems to be some kind of anti-gravity propulsion system that is able to hold them up. And that goes to another thing about how they confuse people, just so another way to characterize these guys and be able to see what you're seeing for people who go, oh, am I seeing drones in my neighborhood? Because I'm in Missouri and I don't know, I'm seeing something, it might be a drone. Then what these things do is they pin themselves from that red tail there that I've been showing you, and then they kind of go back and forth and they sway like this. So when they go very high up at a position that's very high, what you'll see is something swinging like this in a pendulum motion, causing a twinkling effect from below. So they have the ability to position themselves in ways that are intelligent, that make you think that they're stars. Another sign of intelligence. Looking at this, I mean, it's clear to see that you can't tell what you're seeing, and it seems to morph, but it's not that it's morphing. People who are going, it's looking like a plane that's kind of going into position where you can see it better. Yeah, your eyes are telling you that. But what's happening is there's these kind of craft that hang out by the dozen, that hover, that do all kinds of things. What I'm catching is them on their way. And I do believe these ones that are on their way are coming from New Jersey. The mayor and I have spoken about this. When you look at a map, if you look at Belleville and you look at where I am in Glen Cove, it literally looks like they're heading in a line towards the ocean here, and then kind of pivot and divot out. And you can kind of see in a lot of my videos, they do this kind of motion, which is also very strange, because you don't see planes going on that exact same pivot. You kind of see them do their own thing and kind of be out of each other's way, and they'll have kind of like a flight path, but they're not doing the exact same motion strategically, and you can't catch it in a way where it's happening over and over and over and over and over and over again, thousands of times every day, in no vicinity of any airport, not on any radar. People can say, oh, I have special radar, whatever the case is. I have people that work at JFK communicating with me, and they're saying, this is not something that's going to come out on your radar, because maybe it's military. There are people who are coming from a TSA standpoint, so they're saying their homeland, they're going, okay, this, and they're just regular people like you and I. We're not talking about people who are like top level clearance. We're talking about just regular Joes, like we were talking about earlier. They're clearly not airplanes. They're not coming out on anyone's radar, and the volume of it is intense. So I'm sorry if I'm running on. I feel like this is something that I'm so passionate about. Dan, please,
It
any questions
shows.
that you have? Yeah.
So the things that fascinate me about this particular wave are going to be the sightings or the witness testimony that is of objects that have been basically pinned in the sky, especially when it's multiple, especially when it's directly over someone's house at what appears to be a very low altitude. Real quick to touch on the reflection that you're seeing in here. One of the things that I would automatically think is that I'd be able to see the reflection of the moon on the water. So I don't know if a reflection gives you much of a gauge for distance, if that makes any sense. So that's one of the things that I'm wondering. And then I'm going to caution you to try I don't mean this in a rude way, but stay in your lane as best you can. I try not to overextend my capabilities when it comes to analyzing these things.
Mhm.
If we don't know what kind of propulsion it is, we don't know what it is. I feel
I
like
get
it's
you.
fine to say we don't know, but I'm guessing that it could be plasma based. But at this point, I don't think that I don't feel comfortable making that conclusion. So that'd be one thing that I would kind of ask you to consider when you're reviewing these is stick with what you can prove, and
You
then
got it.
say, but now I'm going to speculate, because
Uh-huh.
speculating is the fun part of
Uh-huh.
both the UFO phenomenon
Mhm.
as well as this drone phenomenon. What
Mhm.
if? What does it mean? So
Mhm.
that's just my 2 cents. But you do have one more video that you wanted me to show people. Are you ready to cover that one
Yeah, I just
now?
want to just touch on what you said really quickly though before we move forward. It's just that the reflection, when I try to show people the reflection, I'm just trying to point it out to the people that it's something that's moving closer. You can see it moving closer. To say I can give you the exact time, whatever the case is, anyone who wants to correlate it with the exact time. But I'm just trying to prove that that's heading over Hempstead Harbor. I guess you would have to come see it with your own eyes, and I welcome anyone who wants to come see it with your own eyes, of it actually passing over the water over me. But it's just my way of trying to, I guess, yes, I should stay in my lane. I'm not trying to say, oh, this is a perfect way to explain the light, this and that. But it's just my regular Joe
Yes.
trying to say of it's passing over the water, and it's my only way to try to prove to you that it's passing over a particular harbor from the town called Port Washington towards me, where I'm in Glen Cove. I'm just trying to make it aware to anyone who's going to say, oh, that's coming from JFK or LaGuardia, because that's very, 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 very far away from me, Dan. So, and definitely for the plasma comment, forgive me. I'm just trying to find words that make sense to me.
Yeah.
What I can say was that I was underneath one of these crafts as it came very close, and it pushed off. And as it was coming very close in the fashion where it turns from one of these round with the two blinking on the sides, turning into what we look like a drone, it went over me and then pushed away. But as it was very, very close to me and right over my fire department where I live, what it looked like to me as a restaurant owner, when you turn on the flame, even in your kitchen, when you turn on the flame, that blue that's on the bottom of the fire, it looked like it was projectiling out towards me. So what you would imagine would be headlights look like some kind of blue fire. So I'm not going to use any words. I'm just going to speculate here. It looked like a blue fire moving towards me. And as the thing like pushed off, that's why I'm speculating that it has a propulsion system underneath that I like to call it a chamber that pushes down. I forgot what it's called. It's like the cooler effect, cola effect, someone told me, that pushes down, and it from underneath, just like I told you from when you turn on the stove, that fire that turns on, it looked like from underneath started going, and it pushed some kind of fire like to move itself in a way that looked like something that I had never seen before. So that's why I'm trying to like grab words that people are saying to put with what I've experienced. So forgive me for that speculation there.
Well, I no need to ask for forgiveness. It's like I said, it's the fun part of this whole thing that we're witnessing, is trying to figure out something that I feel like humanity has struggled to explain over the course of many centuries. And it's possible that our language doesn't even allow us to utilize the right terms to accurately describe this. And the terms that are accurate to us now, 100 years from now, they might not, no one might know what we're talking about. So it's different, and it's difficult to actually accurately describe these things that are anomalous with our traditional prosaic terms. Even the Vatican has put out new guidelines for what supernatural miracles are, and they in the writing say the human language doesn't have the appropriate amount of terms or the type of terms to accurately describe the supernatural effects of heaven. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but so I think we struggle to explain it, and that's one of the things that I think makes this whole thing difficult, is what you see and how you describe it aren't going to be easy for everyone to make them correlate. So that's my 2 cents on it, is we can see anything, but we might not be able to accurately relay that information is a problem that we have. That being the case, do you want to check out the other video?
Yes, please. Let's move
Okay,
forward.
let me
For
see if
sure.
I
I
can just
can't wait to
switch it
show people. I
over.
love showing people this.
Okay, you have at it.
Yeah, so what you're seeing here, my friends, is another thermal shot. Now, what I want people to pay in mind to is the first thing you're going to notice is that there is no windows on this object here. So as you can see, the reflection from these two orbs here light up whatever this object is in the sky. So for people who say that we can't track these things, that it's impossible to track them, they don't come up on radar, clearly you're seeing two objects that are so hot that they come out very bright purple. So we're talking about thermal here. So they're coming out very purple, and we can see something underneath, which I was talking to you about earlier, some kind of chamber. And then look, you can see, Dan, as it's passing there, it illuminates the side of this object as it passes forward. You can see another one in the distance. So what's happening is this is kind of like in between passing through, and I have video of this happening in other instances. I don't know why this happens. I've been watching these things for a long time, kind of like hunting them, stalking them in the sky and trying to make out their patterns. But for some reason you see this, Dan, and for some reason they kind of fly in between, and that's where conversations start to happen. And I'll show a video like this to the mayor, and we're going, what is this? What are we seeing? Are we seeing something that's American flying through the sky, flying in between two things that aren't American or aren't of this world in the sky? Or is it all of this world and it's not ours and it's our enemies, like that Chinese weather balloon that was halfway across the country before we shot it down? Are we checking this out? Is this some kind of new technology here that we're flying? Because, my friends, Lockheed Martin has been working on things. I mean, Boeing has been working on things that you and I wouldn't be able to understand, and they started working on those pre 9/11. You're talking 2000. They started working on things that look like stuff from Star Trek to us over 25 years ago, 20 years ago. So whatever we're trying to see now, I don't know, I'm just trying to make sense of it, but whatever you can see is something very hot, another one very hot, very far in between, and then something flying in between these two objects that seems to look like what people call a drone, but it's very hard to say because at different angles, this object looks like many different things. Like, I have videos of this same type of object, the same UAP that people call looking like a disc from far away, because at another angle, it looks like something that's round with a red dot on top, which is what's confusing. That's that tail that we talk about to distinguish this as a big red. So it's very confusing. It seems that this has some kind of cloaking technology. People have been seeing this in Jersey, but white in the day. So in the daytime, it seems to be looking different to other people on video. And that's the only video that I look at, Dan. So now we're talking about content and things like that, my content. Whenever I see anything that looks CGI, right away, I just start to put on the hat that people should have when you look at my content, which is the critic hat, which is the skeptic hat, because that's the only way you find truth, my friends. A lot of the times we're looking for truth and it's shrouded in a lot of BS. So you have to put a little magnifying scope on things and look, and you can look at this footage over and over and over again. Anyone who wants this original footage, anyone who's like, I'm an analyst, I'm a skeptic, I work for the military, I did this, I follow this thing for about 3 minutes. So you don't follow the things in the sky around your eye of sight for 3 minutes, especially when you live in a crowded place like where I am, my friends. The sky is far in between. There's a lot of buildings around, a lot of houses around. So you shouldn't be able to do these kinds of things with objects that make no sense, and they're happening all the time. And I'm able to film it all the time. I have to stop myself from filming at nighttime, Dan. I have to tell myself, go home and be with your family, because I can only be out there freezing, to a certain extent before I say, okay, I've had plenty enough footage. You have to turn your back to these drones. I feel bad now because you say you want to see them so bad. I literally have to say, okay, all right, okay, whatever you are, I'm saying goodnight. I literally try to have fun and be out there. I'm alone. I welcome anyone who wants to come out with me. I've had friends come out and things like that, cousins and relatives or whatever. But for the most part, I'm alone. But I see that I'm not alone. We're not alone. I don't feel that we're alone, Dan. And there's things in the sky that are out there with us. And whatever it is, it seems to be putting off a lot of heat. And I'm wondering why, like we were talking about earlier, people who have billion-dollar equipment that's funded with our taxpayer dollars, why they can't provide people with content like what I'm showing people now, which is what is above our homes over here in New York and New Jersey. And I don't know, Dan, it's just, you can see it yourself. Like, you see something like that, you want answers, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll say this, the quest to get answers to the mysterious aspects of our life are highly addictive. So just like you, I call it the equivalent of, well, I'm going to quit fishing right after this corner or right after this cast. Okay, well, now it's this cast. And then before you know it, you spent another 8 hours trying to catch a fish. And it's the same way with trying to catch images of drones or anomalous things in the skies. I do the same thing. I have a $100 night vision camera I sit in my backyard with on occasion and just scan the skies looking for things. I've seen a lot of satellite flares. I've seen a lot of stuff, but there's not anything that I've been able to have that's been that moment where I'm like, that's it. That's definitely it. But I dread going in. Once you start doing it, you're like, oh, I got 3 tonight. I can't leave now. It's such a problem to put the brakes on. And like you said, go be with your family like a normal human being that has a incredibly interesting hobby. One of the things I wanted to back up about real quick, the second most asked question or the confusion from the previous video was the date associated with it. So I just want to let you clear the air on why the date was off.
Yeah, my friends, I think I might have touched very briefly on it earlier. Forgive me. I bought these things off of Amazon. I don't know where they came from. They're just like the drones. I don't know where they came from, but the manufacturer told me that I can't do squat about it. I can cut off the video on the bottom, but it kind of takes away a little bit from the video. Or like I have already done, I've already purchased new ones. They're already on their way. So fingers crossed, yeah, that these don't have the exact same problem. I bought a different company's night vision binoculars and spent a little bit more money. So hoping that these ones that are hopefully here today, shout out to Amazon Prime, that they'll get here and that we can get some content that has the exact timestamp. So everyone who wants to know, forgive me, I can give you, because I'm always filming at the same time with my phone, Dan. So a lot of the times I can look back and go, okay, I know exactly what time, where that was. I'll go to different beaches in my area and go, I can say what location with from an iPhone, which gives those things off in the details. So it's not like, oh, this guy fabricated that, because I can send you the actual iPhone video from when you can hear the audio of me saying this at that time or whatever the case is, and you can download it. And a lot of times you can hit like get info or whatever the case, you download a file and you can say, oh, this was taken at that location this time, whatever the case is.
So that is the most relatable and reasonable explanation anyone could expect for why the date's off, because none of us know how to get into these cameras and tinker with them. And even the owner's rep won't be able to figure it out for you. So it's just the way that it is. We're working on low budgets here, people. Like not everything's going to be perfect.
Dan, I would love to just use your platform really quick to just ask a favor for the people of the world. Anyone who knows people who are helicopter pilots or private pilots or whatever the case is who want to take me up, I would love for someone to say, let's go up in the air. Let's go to exactly where you are, to this exact spot where you're seeing these every night, and literally just park ourselves in the air and see what happens. I would love to see it. I would love to see it from above. I've gone skydiving here on Long Island. I've jumped from 14,000 feet. And wow, when you're up there in the sky and you see things, it gives you a whole other perspective. So I would love to see it, because I do look at that radar all the time, and someone who is in the same camp as me, I can't imagine, there's a lot of rich and bougie people in New York and stuff like that. I'm not one of those people. I'm a hardworking person. I'm spending 14 hours a day slamming away on dough, making pizza. You know what I mean? But there's like billionaires that are flying through the air with these things in the air. How are they not, how do you not just take your phone and just record something for people? I don't get it. There are out there. You can see these companies and that fly by my area, and you can see, okay, wow, there's a private helicopter company that's going to Manhattan right now, or it's going to New Jersey, or it's going to some airport, or whatever the case is. I would love for someone to say, I'm one of those pilots. Let's go up. Let's go see what's up there. Or someone who has a boat who can take me out in the water over here nearby, whatever the case is. I'm trying to show everyone. I have a friend of mine who does car meets on Long Island. It's a big thing here. There's a big car meet culture, to have like a drone UAP car meet up, so we can meet up at this beach and say, hey, let's have like the first ever group UAP factual sighting, where we can all 100 people can say we're all looking at the radar, we're all seeing things with our own eyes on a live stream. I would love to even do that with you and your audience, whatever the case is. Anyone who wants to, if you want to set that up, have a live stream. I tell this to people all the time. It's something that you feel like almost like what's that word, Dan? What's that story? The kid on the hill who was always trying to get everyone's attention. Like, hey, there's a fire.
The boy that cried wolf.
What's that?
The boy that cried wolf.
Oh, the boy that cried wolf is. I'm Italian, so we have all these like old weird Italian like prophetic stories. There's a fire, and then the guy's like, "Hey, there's a fire," but everyone like seeing the world, we're all on our phone or whatever, so everyone's like, "Yeah, whatever." But then the fire ends up burning their house. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel like that's why a lot of the times like people are like, "You're excited about this." It's like, yeah, how are you not as excited about it? And that just goes and touches on and this is fun to touch on and speculate on the consciousness aspect of what's going on, and how they're saying that whatever this NHI is, a UAP, whatever letters that you want to use, whatever the case is, we're trying to make up for it, is operating on levels of consciousness and awareness. And I do want to say to people that I'm a yoga instructor. I've been teaching yoga since 2016, practicing since late childhood, probably like when I was 12 years old. And it might have a lot to do with our ability to be aware. Consciousness, a lot of the times, Dan, a lot of people, they like to dress in like garb and wear a lot of beads and things and like pretend that they're gurus and this and that, and confuse people with words. Even the word consciousness, which is an English word, it's not something that we're trying to grab from Sanskrit or whatever the case is. Consciousness is just awareness. It is just in itself awareness. You and I are aware of each other, and that is all what consciousness is. So it seems to me, and seems to be coming out with what's been coming out from News Nation, a lot of these whistleblowers and things like that, and from what I'm starting to see now, even on a local level, and which goes back and weaves all the way back to my film, that there's a level of awareness that not every human being has. And little by little, we're starting to have to turn on the light. Just like imagine if we're in a dark room, if I were in the dark and I'm going, "Hey, Dan, over here." Maybe you might go, "Oh, Dan's over there. I hear Dan over here." But not every person is going to be able to make their way there in the dark. And it's taking all these lights turning on and that awareness. And that's where people get into the third eye, things like that. And they make it like, "Oh, you got to be sitting and meditating for 100 hours to be able to understand these concepts." The third eye, Dan, is the obliteration of the ignorance. It's the sun that comes out in the night. It's this darkness that now you're getting a light and now you're able to see. And I think that all of these themes and all these kind of allegorical kind of like symbolisms and things are going to start to connect with people, and people are going to start to go, "Oh, it sounded like a bunch of new age stuff or whatever the case before, but it feels like now to me that all these things are starting to collide, and it's colliding now with politics, and it's colliding now with local government, and now your Aunt Susie and John down the street is going to go, 'Hey, did you know that people are controlling some kind of non-physical physical craft with their minds?' That might be the conversation that might be in Thanksgiving tables sooner or later. So it's like it's really cool to see this happening, and this kind of like awareness start to turn on in people's minds. So I don't know, it's just something fun to speculate on.
Yeah, I think you might have jumped ahead to my next question, but before I get to it, I'll just say that I'm an engineer. I was born an engineer. Engineers aren't made; they're born. And I've suffered with racing thoughts for my entire life. So yoga and meditation have been a struggle for me. I've never successfully been able to get into it. But you're right. There is definitely something to be said about the consciousness connection. I actually like to say I'm an engineer that's into UFOs. I came for the nuts and bolts. I stayed for the consciousness connection, because that does, like you said, I feel like we're heading in certain directions. One, we're headed from outer space to undersea. That seems to be a predominant theme in the narrative that we're seeing currently. But then also it's not just nuts and bolts. There's a consciousness aspect to this that we are struggling to understand and once again describe. I like to think, I speculate, which is fun, of course, that in the past we had a closer connection with our environment, with the world around us, that we have lost. And we lost a few things along the way when we made that transition in our ancient past. And I'm thinking that maybe the consciousness connection to each other, but also to our environment around us, is one of those things that was a casualty of us advancing into civilizations that are unique to this planet. So we've become the oddball on this planet. We're not built to live outside without coatings and clothing and shelter. We can't survive on this planet and thrive. If you drop even Brady Barr, the Survivor Man, off in the middle of the jungle, there's going to be a lot of animals around him that are plump, well rested, but any human being is going to be scraping to survive. So we've become an alien on our own planet is how I kind of view us. I also view us as a cancer on our planet, unfortunately. But
You sound
it's
like my
very,
dad.
yeah. But it's very strange that we are coming full circle. We may be learning more as we learn more about the UFO phenomenon. It might fill in some of the blanks or give us the context about our past and about where we came from that we currently can't view it in. Like we currently view it through a certain lens, age of technological advancement lens. But if we can remove that lens and put one on that says there's telepathy, there's a consciousness connection with the world around you, it's going to make the events of our past and our forefathers and their ancestors be viewed in a different light. And we are going to benefit as a society from being able to learn more about that. But that being said, I'm going to get to my question. This will be the one that we end on.
Dan, before you get to the question, just because it's such an important thing that you're right there, Dan. It's so fun because it's something that I love talking about, consciousness and awareness. You're right there, Dan. I really, 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 really want to share it. You touched on it, and you touched on it so hard you have no idea. So you talked about how we lost this connection to this consciousness from our ancestors, and then you also said, "I'm an engineer." And I have not the easiest time meditating because my mind is always racing and I have these racing thoughts. So this is where I actually hold the level of expertise because I've been kind of training in this for years and years and years and years and years. And what I can tell you is what those two statements that you made are entirely connected to what we're talking about and why we have a hard time. Now, you said that we have a hard time kind of connecting to these things that our ancestors had, and you have a hard time meditating because what's happening here in the States specifically, because in India it's very different. We're talking about meditation and these kinds of things that are coming from ancient India. It's very different for their culture, even though they are westernizing, but we are the West. You and I are two people that are coming from, born and in the West, and we're living and come from that state of mind and mind frame. Okay, so they teach us the word meditation. And just to put it out there, I know your answer. What do they tell you when you have to meditate, Dan? What do they say you have to do?
Clear your mind.
Okay, you see, that's the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. And it's funny because I've had a lot of students during the pandemic, Dan. I turned on TikTok and I started teaching live. I had 150,000 followers at one point. I literally turned that account off. I don't use that account. I literally just did it to do good. I would teach live classes every day, connecting to so many people because they were during the pandemic. People were locked down and they were stuck and feeling upset and couldn't be healthy and could be mentally healthy. So I said, let me use my time locked up to just help as many others as I can. So that's just as a testament, just to kind of show what kind of person I am. But going back to it, what's happening is they're telling us here in the West to sit down, stop everything, stop your thoughts and clear your mind to be able to focus on something. When you're sitting down, then nothing in your body stops. Your organs don't stop. Your blood doesn't stop circulating. Your brain doesn't stop thinking. So why all of a sudden are you supposed to turn it off? And I'll tell you why. It's because of profit. Because people sell programs, because people sell books, because people sell seminars and all kinds of things. And isn't it a coincidence that you can't do it? It's a hard time to do it because you go, oh, I'm trying to master this thing. I'm level 3, this, that, meditation. I'm trying to master this. I'm trying to perfect this thing. When it's something that I can teach to people in a moment. And it only takes an understanding. And like we were talking about that awareness, that third eye, all these things become complicated only to me and you because it's washed in all this other BS new age stuff because people are trying to sell something. When all in all, it goes back to this. And it goes meditation. The true word for meditation, Dan, is dhyana. Dhyana, kind of like the girl's name, Dhyana, but it's not spelled that way. It's kind of like a DH. So dhyana. Dhyana, the root word, Sanskrit word, works kind of like a seed. It plants a seed and makes the root, and then that's how you understand the definition of all the words. And this is the ancient language from Indo-Europe that we're talking about here for people who aren't aware. Sanskrit, it's called. So when you look at the Sanskrit word, the Sanskrit root word there is dhru, and dhru means to hold. Okay, so what it means is that you're supposed to grasp something. So what you look at when you look at the ancient texts is a lot of times these people were grasping some kind of weapon, a lot of times an energy weapon, which is really cool. And then they were using everything within their might, all of their energy, and they're not stopping anything to be able to focus on one point. And a lot of the times it was like symbolized as a bird or whatever the case is in different stories, different texts, because these are symbols trying to say, if you got to shoot a bird, you're coming from a hunter's perspective, right? If you got to shoot a bird, are you going to go here? You're going to go there? You're going to kind of touch your bow? Or you're going to know. You're going to use 100% of your might, just like you're an engineer. When you got to get something done, you got to use 120% of your brain, 120% of your energy, and you put all of that focus in. And that's what being a yogi really means. It's pin focus. And I see two people talk about that third eye, whatever the case is. People just try to make it very fancy. But when you talk about it in these practical things is, oh, I just have to have focus. I just have to have all my energy collected in a place where I can focus it instead of trying to turn it off. That makes it so much easier rather than saying I got to sit somewhere and turn it off. You mean I could be driving, I could be working, I could be doing something and then connecting with what people call meditating? Yeah. But they try to make it so much harder for you. And then when you try to put yourself in your frame of mind state to understand consciousness, understand awareness, it seems like something that you have to like go to India and do some kind of retreat. And then people come back and they're like, oh, I'm aware, I've had an awakening. All those people I just throw off. And everyone from my camp, coming from like different ashrams and things where I'm coming from, or being classically trained in yoga, we kind of brush these people off because you can tell it's kind of like just ego talking and say, oh, I know more than you, I'm more aware than you. When you're coming at it from our perspective saying, hey, let's make it practical for people, try to help regular people understand what's going on with them in their lives and make it more compatible for them so that they can understand 2025, not some fancy whatever the case is from a million years ago that or maybe something true that our ancestors lost a long time ago, some kind of art to be able to connect with whatever it is that's out there. Whatever it is, you and I can do it while we're driving, we can do it while we're speaking here, we can think, you know what I mean? And it's pretty cool, and just goes to the Vedic sciences. I would love for people to do a little bit more research into the Vedic sciences. I think now as science is progressing, more and more people from India are talking about this. We're again coming from the West, so this is not something that our podcasters talk about or people that we're listening to. We listen to Joe Rogan, but you can look up, I think it's Beer Biceps, the guy's called, huge podcast in India. They have a lot more of the connection. They even talk about UAP and stuff to their ancient culture, because their ancient culture kind of touches on a lot of the sciences that our culture and our sciences are trying to prove now today. They've been holding on to these things for a long time. They're going, it's in our text, it's explained in these ways that are allegorical, but we've known for a long time. So
Well, the Indian religions, they even have a lot of extraterrestrial, I'll call it extraterrestrial because that's our modern term for it, but they even have blue entities, the blue gods that came from the skies. They have the Vimana that everyone in UFO communities knows about. So there's a lot to be said about untapped resources when it comes to other closed off civilizations. And I don't mean closed off like they've closed themselves off. India has it. They just haven't integrated with the modern Western society. China's a little bit of a different story. I think that China's the discoveries we're going to find in the archaeological record in China and India are going to blow people away. Dwarka is one of my favorite mysteries of the past in India. It's there. It's washing up on the shore, but we just can't get to it because we don't have the technology or the funding to do so. All right. But we got to get close to wrapping this up. So I'm going to ask you my last question.
Go ahead, Dan.
This whole time we've been talking about what we think it is. You've touched on the answer I think you're going to provide to this just a little bit. But let's say that we do, through your efforts, we do get disclosure. We do get that smoking gun where it's indisputable evidence that, hey, that is some form of a non-human intelligence. What do you think the impacts of that are going to be in the short term and then in the longer term in regards to humanity as a whole? This is the fun part, so please feel free to speculate away.
Yeah, I love this question, because this was the exact same question that I asked Mayor Melham. I said, how is this going to affect, I really want to know on a local level, how is this going to affect you? You're a mayor of a town that people are looking, and no one relies on me except the people asking for the pepperoni pie in the oven. You understand what I'm saying? That's the only responsibility on my back and my kid. But when people have to respond now, like you said, we do find something out, and we can speculate and say, hey, the world might change, and say things might be very different. Personally, like I was saying to you earlier, talking about this awareness and consciousness starting to kind of arise within all of us as a whole, I do believe that there's some kind of harmonic resonance between all things living and non-living. So it's like everything that between a rock and the trees, the skies and everything around us has some kind of resonance, you know. And I think within that resonance, this is a universal connection. People call it a universal mind, a hive mind, you would say, right? You could look at ants, you could look at bees and things like that and think about this. But I do believe that our hive mind will adjust. And I think that this might be the evolution of man. And that's why I was so intrigued in starting this documentary and understanding it on a regular person's level, because then maybe 1,000 years from now, people might look at it and go, wow, these human beings were documenting their immune responses, their local responses, their government responses, their psychological responses, their conscious response. I mean, there's so much that might be happening right now that we're in day to day, as days go on, we're watching the story unfold in front of us. So I think that what'll happen at first is confusion. Now, a lot of people are out there saying that people are going to start hurting people and doing that. When I hear that, I just think, who hurt you? That's the first thing that I think, like, who hurt you to make you think that when you find out that there is something that's amazing out there, that you want to hurt people? I don't know. And that doesn't make sense to me. I feel like that's a frame of mind that comes from something probably from most of Americans going to sleep watching a murder mysteries going to bed at night. I don't think that's the case. I think that life is a lot more beautiful than what we care to think of it. And I'm a very optimistic person. I'm Sanatani myself, so talking about Hinduism, that's the term, the Indian term, I guess you would say, for Hinduism. The Greeks, I believe, gave us that word because of geographical reasons. But in that understanding, it's that, and you can take it, it doesn't have to be a religious thing, it's that everything is universal. Everything is universal. There's only one universal light, one universal heat, one universal darkness, one universal everything. And then we're all connected within this one universe. And I do believe that little by little, this awareness that's coming within all of us, people talk about a movement, a shift in consciousness, things like that. I don't know. Personally, myself talking to you, telling you I'm Sanatani, we have something called yugas, Dan. And yugas are a time kept, I believe it's done through astrology for thousands and thousands of years by the ancient sages of India. And it's still able to be kept to this day. I mean, there are timekeepers who can tell you where we are in the specific yuga according to these people, according to their calendar. And as we know, the calendar is like the center point of a dogmatic life for people in any civilization. So there are calendar keepers that keep this. So I don't know about a shift, because according to them, they say we live in the Kali Yuga, and the Kali Yuga is a yuga of getting more and more darkness. And that's why I believe that the Buddha came out in the beginning of this yuga, something like that. I'm not familiar with this, and it's very vague and to get into or whatever, but the Buddha basically told people to be Buddhists. It's an extension of Hinduism, because he was saying we're entering this yuga and we're entering a time of shrouded darkness. So to wait that time, we have to pass that time, and we're just going to sit and wait and meditate. And that's why you see that group of people which refer to themselves as Buddhists. That's their practice. That's what you see. These dharmic ways of life are done in practice. And just weaving back to what I'm saying, I feel that what will happen is that people kind of will understand dharma, and people learn about karma a lot, and people understand in a way, I think they can try to understand karma. They understand that as what goes around comes back around. It's not, the word in Sanskrit translates to action. But I want to talk about dharma here, and I feel like that's going to come into a lot of people's lives. And it's a word that not many of us here in the West are familiar of. And dharma is this universal law, this universal understanding. And it touches on what being Sanatani is, and Sanatana is Sanatana Dharma is the eternal universal law. And it's this idea that there's this kind of governing blueprint of the universe. And that's why you see it manifest in different gods, and monkey gods, and elephant gods, and fire god, and sun god. It's all allegorical symbols to explain that the universe, or God, or whatever word that you want to use to try to rationalize it, and whatever kind of like mechanism that we have here, is all around us, and it's connecting us. And this resonance that's within it is what's propelling us forward, I believe, like kind of water moving forward. Like when someone who I guess studies water looks at how it moves and it collects with other water and keep moving forward. Rivers are always moving into the ocean. That's a perfect example. Everything in life, everything in the cosmos is constantly moving forward. And I believe that this is just a part of our progression and a part of our human story. And I'm glad to be doing it here with another Dan, as we're doing it in front of the people of the world. It's a wonderful thing.
The thing that resonates with me most that you said is one. Like, that is my hope for what we learn about the UFO phenomenon, is that it's not just us and the rest of the universe, is that we're all one in some way, shape, or form that we can't perceive right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is part of us and we're part of everything. That's what I'm hoping. That's where I hope we're headed, with a better understanding of who we are. We're not limited to this planet. We have parts of the universe that we've come from. All of our elements came out of stars getting blasted apart. If quantum entanglement is true, and you can entangle two objects if they're close to each other and then take them far apart, and they can communicate in real time. If the Big Bang theory is true, everything was close to itself at some point in the universe. So why wouldn't that be true going forward? That, well, if it was one time there, this giant explosion happened, why can't we think that maybe we're all connected across the universe through quantum entanglement of some form? This is disclaimer, I'm speculating, I'm not an expert, I'm staying in my lane on this one, I'm just making guesses. So that's what I'm hoping for, is that it is going to allow us to have, instead of being on the island that we talked about earlier, where we're feeling alone and we're looking out over the oceans, looking for someone to discuss things that we enjoy with us. Maybe that's us. Maybe this next step of UFO disclosure is us getting off that island and realizing there's a lot more to the world that's at our fingertips than we ever fathomed. So that's what my hope is for it. But that being said, man, it's been fun talking to you. I'm looking forward to the documentary that you're going to put out. Do you have a timeline on that? I know you might be like me, where I'm like, I'm going to get to it, and you procrastinate.
I definitely, for everyone asking on a timeline, I'm telling people that I feel like we're still in Act 1. I was hoping that when Trump spoke that we would end up in Act 2, and we're going, okay, now we know what this is. Now we're figuring it out. Now we're moving forward. But until I see, we're watching this story arc happen in front of our eyes. I mean, it's happening to the entire UAP community. It's happening to everyone, even in the aerospace community, anyone who's looking up. It's all unfolding now. So I'm trying to say, okay, I'm taking it piece by piece, and trying to make this a project where I don't want to rush it, and I just want to make it something where it's like almost like where I want to document it in a way where 100 years from now or 500 years from now, the humans that are in front of us can look back and go, wow, they literally step by step showed us how this went down. Because I feel like when you look back in history, that's kind of very confusing, even in like relatively not too long ago. So just trying to do the best I can for humanity, my brother.
Well, appreciate your efforts. Once again, been great talking to you. Look forward to hearing more from you in the future, and from Mayor Melham. He's an interesting cat, so I'm grateful that you and him are teaming up to push this ball forward. But other than that, unless you have any closing comments, I'm ready to sign out if you are.
Just look up. Thank you so much, Dan.
All right. Thank you. Thank you guys for watching.
Take care.